Good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming tonight. This is Humanity Junction. We are doing Meet the Live Streamer tonight. Sparky's taking the night off, so I'm stepping in, and we've got a fantastic interview for you tonight. I've got on I guess it's the right side of the screen, we've got all of the Model Railroad live streams coming up, as well as the other shows that we have. And we're going to go right through them as let's see if I can say hello to a couple people here. Hello, Anthony Dodge, the Model Train Outsider. Hello, Back on Track. Hello, Carl from Bang Got You Junction. Hello, Caboose 121. Hello, Chuck at CDP 1965. Hello, Brian and Mike from Crossed Anchors. Hello, Dave BNSF N-Scale. Hello, Dave P. Hello, Dwight Curley. Steeler Fan 820, changing your name, putting Frank in the front. Hello, Chris from Go Via Go Home. JD at Grandpa Rails. We got James Galton. We've got Jerry Satarali. Jerry, I'm sure I say your last name wrong, but I'm doing what I can. Hey Joe Raider, Black Rock Central. Got JT1, Lauren Hurwitz, Manny Fernandez, Marty M, Melvin Fackler, thanks so much for coming. Nathan DeLay, New Fenris Railroad, Ray Boble, Schuylkill River Valley. We've got 3 out of the 4 Sidetrack Sundays. We just got to find the train freak. Shane's Trains, welcome. Steve Childers, Steve 87 PSAP. I think, let's see. I think I got most people. As we're getting started, I do want to say our guest tonight does have his own interview to do later tonight, so we need to respect his time. We're going to hold this down, end this at about 8:15. We will be taking questions from the masses, so we'll see how all that goes as well. So without further ado, I am very pleased to bring up our guest of honor tonight. Flipping the tables on him, it's our turn to ask the questions. Here he is, ladies and gentlemen, Big Bill from Model Railroading Live. Hey, Bill.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening. Container Man saying, keep reading, human. Container Man, I'm actually not reading except for when I was reading the names. I'm actually just making it up tonight. So, Big Bill, this is Meet the Live Streamer. So tonight, I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions, somewhat around live streaming, but a lot of it just sort of how you got in it. I got some sort of standard questions, and then we'll go a little freelance. I'll check the comments. Maybe some people will have questions. If people do have questions in the comments, if you guys could put question and then whatever your question is, it'll help me find it. Thanks all very much. So let's see. Big Bill, how and when did you first get into model railroading?
I first came into model railroading in about 1980, 81. I had I had surgery on my knee, and my wife saw a flyer for the Staten Island Model Railroading Club, and she said, "I think you would enjoy this." So I hobbled on down to the club with my crutches and cane, and they kind of caught fire with me. And a couple of guys from the club came to the basement, and as soon as they saw the basement, they were like, "Oh, we can build a really great layout here." So started building it, and it lasted until about 82. And then once I got off this, the knee thing got better and I gone back to work, the railroad got shelved, and then it got taken down because it was taking space and stuff like that up. And so then we took it down, and then there was nothing there for a while. And then after I retired in 2010, my wife said, "Well, why don't you just go ahead and build a layout?" So that's what we did.
Awesome. And just because you mentioned your job, you used to play with 1-to-1 scale trains for your job.
Yeah, well, I worked for the City Transit Authority. I got hired in 1981 as a conductor, opened and closed the doors on subway trains, and then I took the promotional to become a New York City motorman, and I worked that until I retired in 2010. So it was an interesting job, had its moments.
Michael McCarville just said that he got into model railroading to pick up chicks.
Yeah, that was well, I was already married, so it wasn't going to work. But she always knew where I was. She knew I wasn't down in Clancy's on the third stool from the front entrance. So that's good. You know.
Did working on the one-to-one scale trains influence your model railroading at all?
To a certain degree, yeah, it absolutely has. I mean, operating on a layout as opposed to, I don't have to worry about the cold or the wind or the rain and stuff like that. But yeah, it absolutely has enhanced it. I understand it a little bit. I understand it a whole lot. I'm starting to get into operations, so that helps working when I used to work in the yard and stuff like that. And stuff.
Awesome.
It did. It absolutely did.
You mentioned that you started your layout in 1981, so I'm guessing that your layout came long before YouTube came.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. This
When did you
we
get involved in YouTube?
well we weren't YouTube wasn't even on the radar then. Yahoo or Google or any of that stuff. Everything was done with Model Railroading magazine. I used to have an extensive collection of model railroading magazines that dated all the way back to the 60s. And so you would use that as a reference guide, to do it. And then we got involved in this, I would say, in about 8, 9 years ago. Model and Man Mike was the one who started this up. It was called YouTube Model Builders, and it was basically designed by Mike Phillips to enhance and to promote model railroaders to make better videos. Mike was always pushing the thing, get a better camera, get better lighting, get better this, and put your stuff out there on the video.
Just so people know, I do have the StreamYard stuff set up so that I could bring up some of the things, but it seems to be lagging a little behind tonight. So if you do have questions, I'll just try and keep track of them, and if I can, I'll line them up to bring them up on time. What do you like about doing the live streams? I mean, you've been doing them for many years now.
Well, I like the fact that it's unpredictable. I like the fact that sometimes everything does not go the way you want it to. And I like the fact of meeting new and interesting people. I have to tell you a story. Back in the early days in 1980, 81, 82, I was that guy that went out and purchased all of Miles Hale's DVDs. Still have them in my collection. And I always used to think to myself, man, it would be so cool to meet this guy. It would be so cool to interact with him. And then we got the opportunity to actually meet him. And it actually was, they say, remember my old man used to tell me, never meet your heroes.
Yeah.
And I have to say that meeting Miles Hale personally, up close and personal, has been one of the most highlighted moments in my life. He is such a gentleman. His wife, Fran, is so lovely and gracious. And the fact of the matter that they are so knowledgeable, but they are so warm and receptive. And they're willing to listen to everything and anything you're willing to suggest. So that's always been, paramount, is meeting new people. As you know, Heath, you're a New Yorker. I'm a New Yorker. We don't have a problem talking to people.
Yeah.
And we don't have a problem yelling at people. And but we also don't. We also enjoy talking. And this has been a great outlet of getting to meet other YouTubers and other modelers. And since doing this interview thing, it's been really.
So speaking about the interviews, we actually have a comment from the person that you're interviewing, or the people that you're interviewing tonight at 9:00. Cross Anchors Railroads wants to know, how long have you been doing these great interviews?
I would say about 8 years now.
Wow.
Total of 8 years. We started off very small. We used to do 2-hour segments. And then we cut them back because John Mitchell, who's my producer / director, he's the guy, he's the brains behind the outfit, along with Andy Crawford, who's our IT guy, and the rest of the crew's Ralph Renzetti, Lloyd Hinckley, Joe Desmond, Tim Wayman, and the rest, and Robert Holloman. Uh, those guys are the backbone, the core to the model railroading live crew. I'm just a talking head. That's all. I just, I baffle them with the bullshit and dazzle them with the footwork.
Hey, that works. Someone's got
Yeah,
to do it.
so those are the guys behind it. But he's the quintessential producer director. And we used to do 2-hour slots, and it got exhausting, and we were getting burnt out to the point where it was like, we're not going to do this anymore. And then John suggested, why don't we just do an hour? And I was like, well, okay, so what can we call it? And he was like, well, why don't we just say, who's Big Bill talking to? And I was like,
so did you start off doing interviews? Was that like how you got into streaming, or were you doing some other streaming first and then the interviews sort of came after that?
No, we kind of got thrown into the mix. There was a gentleman, Barry Roget, who's in on the beginning of this. Mike Phillips, his wife, is in the United States Armed Forces in the Army, and she was getting transferred from Germany to Korea, and in that transfer, he was going to be out of touch with us as they, were making that move from Germany to Seoul, Korea. So Barry and I decided, well, why don't we just pick up instead of letting it late? Because if you let it go for a day or two, people forget you. So we wanted to keep that momentum.
A day or
going.
two, you got 15 minutes these days if you're lucky.
Exactly right. So we decided to step it up, and Barry Roget was our producer director, and we were just reaching out to people and asking, hey, you want to be on this show? This is what we're doing. And the original concept, and I shared this with you earlier, YouTube Model Builders, was you needed to have 500 or more subscribers in order to be on the. But we quickly got rid of that because we couldn't really. I mean, we could find them, but it was very elusive to get them on the show. So then we just started doing the average modeler, which I think turned out a lot better. And it's been really interesting. And we actually had a rocket scientist on who's a model railroad. He actually worked for NASA.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was doing the show, and somebody noticed on his desk, his Carenza behind him, that he had the Saturn rockets in different stages. And someone asked if he built those, and he said, no. He says, I'm actually a rocket scientist. I worked for NASA. I worked on the Apollo space mission.
Nice. So, wow.
Yeah, so that conversation got away from model railroading and right into space exploration.
Wow, there you go. Yeah, I know John from TSG Multimedia, who's popped into the chat. He's been talking to the guys over at Silicon Valley, and they've got some smart guys over there as well. So this hobby definitely seems to attract some smart people.
Yeah.
So now I don't want any names with this next question, just sort of like generally describe them. But do you have a best live stream, and do you have a worst live stream? And what made them the best and the worst?
I think that they're all, without sounding, there are a few that stand out. I'm thinking about, that's a good question. That's an actually good question. I think, yeah, I've had a few best ones that were engaging, and it flowed really easy without any effort on my part, without any effort on my part, because it just was something that flowed. The conversation just flowed, and the topic just flowed, and it was really a good best. The worst one I ever had was a guy just literally froze on the screen. He was ready to go. He was ready to do it. And then just before we were going live, he asked me, well, how many people view this? I said, well, live, I said about maybe 55 to 60. I said live, usually in the 30s to the 40s. So he goes, really? And we're live? And I was like, yes. And we do what's known as a tech tune-up a couple of days before, just to basically check your mic and everything that's going on and stuff like that. And he was very talkative, very animated, was happy to show his layout off. And as soon as we went live, he froze like a deer in headlights, and it was like pulling frozen taffy.
Yeah.
I had, just trying to carry the conversation, and that was like I earned my paycheck that night. I did.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, absolutely. So speaking about people freezing up on live streams, I know a lot of people don't get involved because they're nervous or various different reasons. What advice would you give someone that's thinking about doing a live stream?
If you want to do a live stream, just have fun with it, relax, enjoy the moment, be prepared, be ready, do your homework, look at the videos of the people you're going to interview. It's always nice when you know what you're talking about, and it always impresses the person that's being interviewed that, hey, well, this guy actually took time to look at something I put together. And no matter how adversarial it becomes, sometimes it does become that, just keep your cool, just relax, have fun with it, do your research. I mean, you don't have to do tons and tons of research, get into people's bank accounts and see what's,
Yeah.
going on. But, just take an interest. And because it's model railroading, it's something you love already, just enjoy it and have fun. And you're meeting new people. It's always great to meet new people because when you go like to Springfield, Amherst, which, and you go there and you meet people in the aisleways and they're like, hey, Bill. And then you're like, oh, what's up? I finally get to meet each other. And it's, I'll tell you, Barry Roget and I used to communicate this way all the time. Video.
Yeah.
And Barry lives in New Jersey. And he said, hey, listen, I'm going to the Edison train show this weekend. I said, hey, so am I. And he's like, hey, how about we get together and have lunch? And I said, sounds like a plan, man. I'll meet you. So I got there. He gives me a phone call. He's like, hey, I'm right over here by the Lionel guy, in the front. And I said, okay, I'll meet you. So I walk up behind him and I stand over him and I go, hey, Barry. And he turns around and he looks up at me and he goes, damn, you're tall.
Yeah, you don't know how tall people are. You just see them,
Right. You see him sitting and this is all
you don't know. That's all you get.
So it's always nice to see. I met Ralph Renzetti. He's a very tall man too. And I said to him, gee, I thought you were pretty shorter than that when I first met you.
Some of the people in the chat, back on track, as well as the train freak, are commenting about me and my nerves. I know I was even talking to you before this. I like get nervous right before it starts, and it's not so much that I'm nervous about like the show or the conversation or dealing with people or anything. It's like there's a lot going on with the tech stuff and the trying to keep up with the chat and trying to keep up with all this stuff that it's something, that's for sure.
Well, you're by yourself, so your head's like on a swivel stick.
It is. I got multiple things going on, and this is the first time I'm using the setup I'm using tonight. And unfortunately, I'm finding out some interesting things with the chat API gets very behind on StreamYard, so I can't bring up the questions that are coming up in chat. So it's
right.
Yeah.
Well, that's the beauty of having John as the direct. I mean, this is why I, freely can do what I do. I've known John for 8 years now. I've never met him in person, but I've talked with him extensively on the phone. And in 8 years I've known John, I've never seen him get frustrated or curse until last week. Until last week. Yeah, until last week when everything went with YouTube went down the tube, literally, figuratively. But having him behind the scenes, is a great freedom because it allows me to. You'll also notice that I'm from New York and I talk with my hands.
It's all good.
John I used to do this a lot, clap, go crazy.
Blow people out wearing the headphones, yeah.
Right, he'd have to take and then he'd yell at me. He'd send me a text on the phone, stop clapping. But having
a question.
Scenes is good,
Here's a question from Nathan DeLay. He's curious
Mhm.
about other scratch builders that you've seen, and who are some kind of scratch builders that channels that you like watching and would recommend.
Well, first of all, let me say hello to Nathan DeLay. And I want to say that anybody who's ever watched Nathan DeLay's channel, Nathan had make some really scratch building engines out of aluminum cans. And it may sound really, like aluminum can, but the kid is really, Nathan is not a kid. I do apologize, Nathan. But you're a young man and you have a very specific talent. And thank you for what you contribute to the hobby itself and your enthusiasm being in the chat rooms. Other scratch builders that I've seen, I have to say Stephen Atwell. Stephen Atwell of Midwest Model Railroading Hobby Shop. Here's a plug. Uh, he
You're
is
gonna
by
make my sponsors mad.
well,
Keep going, keep
sorry,
going. I'm just go.
sorry. But Stephen is a very good scratch builder. He's very in his unique style of scratch building, and you know, he's very good, very artistic, very patient, and just very good. And Ralph Renzetti, I would say Ralph Renzetti right now is in the midst of building a barnyard scene, but Ralph is a great weatherer and also a great modeler. He's really into sci-fi stuff. So Ralph Renzetti really is good. We call him the Mud Father because he's really
Yeah.
into stuff like that. So yeah, those are the two I can think of off the top of my head.
So Andy Ambrose is asking an interesting question. He says, "Why hasn't Keith got a proper New York accent like Bill has?"
You're gonna have to answer that one, bro.
So Cross Anchors actually asked us a little earlier, but it's on my list as well, so we'll get back to it now. You actually do have your own YouTube channel as well as Model Railroading Live. How'd you come up with the name South Brooklyn Railroad Catastrophe Railroad?
South Brooklyn Railroad is where I grew up in South Brooklyn. It's the Park Slope downtown area, Gowanus Canal area, Red Hook. It encompasses all that. So I grew up in South Brooklyn, and so everything is based on the South Brooklyn. And my South Brooklyn Railroad is based on the Sunset Park Bush Terminal Railroad. Lance Mannheim has one that he's done on the South Brooklyn or the Bush Terminal, Bush Terminal Railroad here in the Sunset Park area. So the South Brooklyn Railroad, aka Catastrophe Railroad, when I used to watch model railroading videos when the advent of YouTube, I would always watch these model railroad and they would flawlessly run. The trains would flawlessly run. The weathering was flawlessly done, impeccable. Everything was perfect. And I said, there is no way that is true in any shape, form, or way.
Yeah.
So I came up with the idea of South Brooklyn Railroad, aka Catastrophe Railroad. My mission was to show you every mistake that could ever be made, and I will be the producer of that mistake and show you how we overcome and adapt it. So I would run trains and they wouldn't run all the way through, so I'd have to push them. And I tell you, oh, it's dirty track. You don't have to clean that. So I was trying to keep it as real as possible, and I've learned a lot. I have learned a lot, from other modelers that are out there. Guys have really, big, big influences have been, you know, Derek Glass, you know, Miles Hale, a couple of the guys in our crew, but everybody that I come in contact with, you can learn from. I remember I did a video on putting a piece of sandpaper on a roof, and I spray painted it black. And guy in the comments says, "Hey, you think I could borrow that idea from?" I said, "Borrow it." I said, "I stole it from somebody else. Go ahead, it's yours."
Speaking about being a voice in the hobby, Steve 87th PSAP says, what's that like being the voice of not just any hobby, but it's kind of an introvert hobby too. It's, we're all sort of individuals in our own basements, in our own worlds. But yet now with things like this, we're all coming back together again.
Yeah, that was the other project of YouTube Model Builders, was to get the modeler out of the basement, you know, because it is that kind of alone experience, you know.
Yeah.
One of the things Mike Phillips always encouraged was like join a club, get involved in a club, and this is kind of like a club. It's a
Yeah.
virtual reality type of club. We've seen what's his Jack. He does live switching sessions, AM, PM, midnight switching kind of deal, which brings it up. So you kind of like that, not. And recently I was talking to Marty from down under in Australia, and he was sharing with us how he, from Australia, he was operating a train, I believe, in Minnesota at a club, So, I mean, it was a passenger train, just going around, but he was still operating from Australia, which was a Thursday
Yeah.
afternoon, but Wednesday evening for those where he was. So I think this has kind of like solidified us together as a club. But
Yeah. These online communities are definitely changing the perception of model railroading as just being, some guy in his business, some guy in his basement, pushing
yeah,
trains around when they don't run.
right. Well, it's a good thing because a lot of people who were in there in the basement, and then the advent of YouTube, they were like, "Hey, wait a minute, that's me.
Right.
That's me. I'm doing
Yep.
that." And it's always, I mean, how many guys out there, how many of you guys out there have had this happen to you? You look up to somebody who is like your expert modeler, and he does something that you just did.
Yeah.
You did it. You did it that day. And then he comes along and says, "Hey, look, I discovered this idea." And you're screaming at the screen, "No, that's my idea." But you're still in the same, you're up there with the Mickey Mantles.
Right.
And you're up there with those guys, that's the problem. That's the good thing with the hobby. The thing is that we as modelers sometimes downplay ourselves. Every time I interview somebody or I say, "Hey, listen, you want to come on my show?" Who's Big Bill talking to? They always say the same thing to me. "Why would you want me on your show?"
I said that.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
"Why not?" Your excuse was, "Bill, I got to hit a certain amount of subscribers." I said, "Well, just come on the show and you'll get there." Now you're a big time guy, and I can't even talk to you. I got to go through
Now I'm
the
flipping the tables on you.
yeah. Now I got to go through your gatekeeper. "Hello, Human City Junction Productions. How may I help? May I speak to Heath? Heath's not here, right? Hold on. It's Bill Graham again. Tell him I'm not here."
Bill
Okay.
who? Bill who?
Yeah, exactly. So you're the big time guy now. Yeah.
Chris from Go Via or Go Home says, "What's next for your channel / layout?" And I've also seen some other questions, people asking if your layout's finished.
Oh, well, Chris. Hey, Chris. Love your channel. Love everything you do with the Go Doc thing. I love that. I don't comment. I sit and watch. I troll you guys. I want to see if I can steal some information and ideas from you. But as new things, we just got finished changing the peninsula on the South Brooklyn Railroad. So we've put it up. And answer to the second question, is it finished? Physically, if you came in, it may look finished to you, but it's evolving every day. I'm putting in new structures and taking out old structures and redesigning some trackage. So, no, it's never finished. It's always evolving into something bigger and better and more attainable.
I want to get into the design of your layout in 1 second, but I do want to mention Jimmy from DIY and Digital Railroad. I have put his link to his channel in the chat every once in a while. If people don't know, his channel got hacked. His channel is basically no more. He's starting over from scratch. So please take a minute, go subscribe to his new channel, so that we can get his subs up as quickly as possible. So Jimmy wants to know, have you ever thought about 3D printing?
That question came up a couple of weeks ago. My son Michael came to me and he said, "Hey, Dad, how about for your birthday, I buy you a 3D printer?" And I was like, "No." The only reason why I wouldn't want to do the 3D printing, it's just one more task and one more piece of equipment that I have to find a place to store it and put it. Not adverse to not doing 3D printing. I would, like to try it. But so many guys that I know have 3D printers. So if I actually needed some, which I did, Miles Hale has a 3D printer and he's printed me up some, stuff, and he's printed me up some. I'd like to share what he's done. Could I? I'm going to move this
Yeah, go
computer.
for it.
Miles Hale did this for me after giving him the blueprints. I'll explain after I show it to you. This tremendous sign. Can you see the Ken tile?
Yep.
Ken
I
tile.
can see it now.
Well, anybody who's been from New York or in the Brooklyn area, the Gowanus Canal area, that was a factory that's been there forever. No longer there now. The building's still there, but that sign isn't. That's an iconic sign.
Yep.
I had mentioned it to Miles, and Miles was like, as soon as he saw the picture of the sign, he says, "We have to build that." I was like, "Well, I was just going to ask you if you could." So, he did, and we put that together over Skype.
Oh wow.
Yeah, he helped me because it's all structurally done the way because he happened to get into the building department when they were taking it down. He got into the building department, New York City building department, and got copies of the blueprint. So
Wow.
it's 3D printed to the actual construction of how it was framed and put up. So, it's pretty good. But as far as 3D printing, there's a lot of guys I know that own 3D printers, so I can, a gift card to their favorite restaurant, and and plus there's Shapeways that's out here in Manhattan.
Yep.
I go to them. I've been to them many times, and asked them if they would be willing to do this, and they said, "Yeah, sure, no problem." So.
And just to mention it, my sponsor actually also does 3D printing as well. Subscribers get 7% off. So, there are a lot of companies out there that offer their services that way, as well as private individuals that will also do stuff for you in this hobby.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
So I had to go back, and it took me a little while to find this question, but I thought it was worth asking. It's from from Rob from Why Are You Naked For? Question for Bill: do you regret having Heath interview you? If no, then why not? Rob's always causing trouble. So,
Yes, I know. Rob is he's a staple on Who's Big Bill talking to. I enjoy his little forays into his comedic life. Have I regretted it? Not yet so far. So far, it's been pretty good. He hasn't asked any damaging questions.
Yeah, he's usually have a good time. The train freak says, Heath, relax. Yeah, I gotta just keep drinking stuff. It's whatever. Corinne Perdomo wants to know if you have a favorite train.
Corinne Perdomo. Well, Corinne is a very good friend of mine. A very good friend of mine.
Oh, awesome.
Yes, she is such a sweetheart of a girl. Young woman, I should say. She has 3 beautiful children. 3. Jackson, I have to make them. Jackson, Noah, and Izzy out there. And do I have a favorite train? Yeah, I had a favorite train. I guess it would be the Baltimore and Ohio, train. Yeah, I would have to say that. Plus the D line. I operated the D line many years.
I thought you were going to mention the train in Brooklyn that you used to do the switching on. That one day you went down there and told me you helped out. I thought.
Oh, South Brooklyn.
Yeah, I thought that's where you were going to go.
No, that was years. That was when I was a brand new modem in South. I modeled South Brooklyn. South Brooklyn Railway was an actual subsidiary of the New York City Transit Authority. And in order to work on one of those, you had to have a single digit file number, seniority wise.
Yeah.
And I was a new motorman, and I got called to work down there because the other guy got called for a medical. And I went down there, and the guy who was the senior number one man in the system of New York City Transit, his name was Pico. And I got there at 8:30 in the morning. And I said, what are we doing? And he said, what are we doing? We're drinking coffee. That's what we're doing. Then I said, what do we do after that? He says, we take a nap. And then I said, and after that, he says, and then we'll see. Maybe we'll work. And then we did work, and we had to go across Second Avenue. And I was the guy that threw the flags out on the street, and the crazy people would drive by and honk and scream at me.
Yep.
And ignore the 2-ton diesel that was going across the street. So yeah. So that would be one of my favorites, but one of my favorites would be the B&O railroad train. Thank you, Corinne, for asking that question. I'm glad to see she's watching.
Yeah. Yeah, Corinne's new to the channel. I think she followed you over here.
Yes, she did. I sent out an email to all my friends to say I was going to be interviewed.
Fantastic. The Train Freak says a finished layout. What's that? I've never heard such a thing.
No, it's not actually. If you came in, you'd say, "Oh, it is finished," but in actuality, it's not. I just took some buildings down and repurposed them, and I just kit bashed another building to put up. I just put up a new business called the South Brooklyn Casket Company, where they make coffins.
Now, you had your layout actually designed by somebody else. Is that
Yes.
something you recommend? Like, what was that process like? Did you enjoy it? You talk about changing things now. Is it like track design changes, or are you just changing the industries that are on it?
Well, no. Originally, what happened was I followed a layout design that was in the model rail. It was the beer line. It was in the January 2009 edition of Model Railroading. And basically what it was two 4x8 plywood sheets together in a long form. And it was like 8 feet long, 4x8, 16 feet long and 4 feet across. And it was in a basement. And I didn't really have much success. And I think I was telling you earlier that the dust would come from the rafters in the basement and fall on the track. And I had been following a couple of guys, Derek Glass and a few other guys, and they were telling me, "Oh, this guy got in touch with me and he designed my layout, and they called him the track planner." And I was like, "Well, who's this track planner?" And I got in touch with Derek Glass, and apparently Derek Glass was sworn to double probation secrecy that he couldn't let me know who the guy was. So I kind of like bugged Derek for like, well, who, just give me his name. And I just want to find out what's going on. How can I get one of these designs done? And he was like, oh, finally he relented and I got in touch with him. His name is William Baronic, Bill Baronic, the track planner. And he designed this layout. And you can see it. The original scope of the plan is up there.
Up on the wall, yeah.
On the wall. So I went to him and he has this whole questionnaire thing. You go on his website, thetrackplanet.com. If you're interested in getting one done, he has this whole questionnaire that you fill out. And very intense, like if you want continuous running, operations, what scale, what do you want to run, what size cars you want. I mean, really in-depth stuff. And then I got to talk to him, and it was a 3-hour conversation on the phone with him. And then he came back with a few designs, and we went over them and back and forth until we finally agreed on them. And then that has, again, morphed into something different, Bill Baronic.
Do you recommend the process to people? Like, do you think you ever would have gotten where you are today as quickly as you did without?
No, I wouldn't have. Because I wouldn't have. I would have designed the layout for what I thought I wanted to do, and then realized that it would not fit or work, and I would have gotten frustrated from it. So I actually needed somebody to come along and design it for me to give me a better perspective. On the first design, I still have the same peninsula, but we had a room divider, a view block between it, and we had very complicated trackage and switching. And I had a good friend of mine who was a retired Conrail engineer, and he said to me, "I can understand what you want to do here on the peninsula with switching, but others who don't know about railroading will have a very hard time." And I found that to be true because people who would come in to operate, I'd have to spend an explicit long time of 45 minutes explaining how it worked. And I
Right.
don't think that's the fun of it. I think what you need to do is like, let's do this, this, and this, and have fun doing it, and it wasn't becoming fun. So I went back to Bill Baronic and I said, listen, I'd like to change this peninsula. What do you recommend? And he came up with a few designs, and then I finally ended up with the design that he came up with. But in doing so, I've learned a lot about track planning and about what works and doesn't work. I'm not an expert on it. I do defer to him sometimes when I want to try something different, and but usually on the whole, I kind of like, in the beginning, it's his layout. That's how I looked at it. It was his layout.
Interesting. Yeah.
It's his. He designed it. It's his, and he kept reinforcing, "No, it's not. It's yours. You do whatever you want with it." So I
Nice.
think it's helpful. Would I recommend it? I would, and I have to be honest that the Bill Baronic, aka Track Planner, is very open. You can reach out to him and talk to him if you're in the midst of designing a layout. You can literally call him up, and he will get back to you, and he will talk to you and give you ideas. He's not that guy that's going to charge you just to talk to him. If you have something you want to discuss with him, he'd be more than happy to throw ideas at you.
That's
If
great.
you decide to commit, then it becomes, okay, this is what I charge and this is what we need to do. So, but I would recommend, seeking someone who knows, you know.
Randall Ellison wants to know what's your favorite modern railroad?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't really know if I have one. I guess, believe it or not, out here in Staten Island, the Norfolk and Southern runs out here with the CSX.
Yes, I do.
They run out in the Conrail, New Jersey area and stuff. So I guess I would have to say the Norfolk and Southern, only based on their color scheme. I love the black engines with the white stripe and the horse, you know.
Yeah, I used to work in Secaucus, and there was a rail line right next to me, and the
Yeah,
Norfolk Southerns would pull in with the, double stack containers, and it's it's,
yeah.
it's pretty crazy.
If you run down the New Jersey Turnpike South, you can pull off to the side of the road and watch them switch.
Yeah, yeah. Mystic Southern asked, and I don't think he was here earlier when we talked about this, but he said, if you worked for the railroad, what would you be? Dispatcher, engineer, or conductor? So I'm going to switch it a little bit and say you did work for the railroad. What what was your favorite part of that? Because you did both conductor and engineer, if I'm not mistaken.
Right. Well, Motorman, I would definitely stay on the train. I've seen dispatches who were very much worth their salt and knew exactly what they were doing. And then there were some who didn't have a clue as to what they were doing.
Yeah.
And the headache from there used to be a time in the transit authority where the dispatcher was the king. He ran his railroad. But then as things progressed and they took that responsibility and ownership away from them, and now it's done by committee.
Right.
Everybody second guesses you. So I would stay. I would stay as an engineer simply based on the fact that it's you, the train, and your conductor, the crew you're working with, and you're kind of like, you know, mono by yourself kind of deal. You make your decisions, though you have to call it into command center to get permission to do certain things. But most of the time, I always said that the job I had, and was 99 9/10 common sense and 1/10 technical
Yep.
because you're dealing with a lot of moving parts. You're dealing with the train, you're dealing with signals, you're dealing with command center, you're dealing with, and then you're dealing with the public. You know,
Yeah.
I've been waiting here for 3 minutes now, and you're the 17th D train to go by. How long have you been waiting? 9 minutes. And how many of these trains have gone by? This train? 17. So that means there was a train. Let me do the math quickly. That means there was a train every 1.2 seconds. I don't know. How does that work, sir? Explain that to me.
But you seem like such a people person, Bill.
Well, I am, but my standard line is we're sorry for the inconvenience. We do appreciate your cooperation. We will be moving momentarily.
Nathan DeLay has asked, Bill, would you want to drive trains for the excursion lines?
Uh, you know, there's a place up in Greenwich, Connecticut that has uh an R32, and I got on it and they let you operate it.
Mm.
Tell them that I was a train operator. So the guy's like giving me the blow by blow instructions on how to operate. So I kind of just like took over. And then I just operated. And then he was like, "No, you're going too fast." I said, "No, this is good. This train will break." And I did what's known as a pop stop. Like when we got to the end, I just released everything and it just like, and he looked at me and then I said, "Well, I work for the system, so I know how this train works." And he goes, "You are out of here and you're never to come back." So
Um, I'm guessing this came from Brian and not Mike, but it could have been Mike. Cross Tankers Railroads wants to know if you got into any fights when you were working on the railroad.
uh, I grew up in downtown Brooklyn and I'm a pretty big guy. And I can tell you that on one hand, I can count how many fistfights I have had in my life as a teenager growing up in Brooklyn. But when I got to the New York City Transit Authority, I can tell you that I almost daily would get into some altercation with the passenger when I was a conductor being spit at. I would put the train in emergency. I'd get off the train and I literally chased the passenger down into the streets of on the number 7 line. I chased them 2 blocks. I left the train up on the platform. Chased them 2 blocks to get to him. I've had altercations. Yes, I have had many, you know, many. And but then after a while, as you get seasoned on the job, you realize, wait a minute, what am I doing? Why am I jeopardizing my life, my
Your job.
my job, and getting over what? Because the thing I always used to get me riled was when I got spit at. Someone
Yeah.
was like, that was it. I've had hot coffee thrown at me. I've had
Ugh.
pizza thrown at me. I've had to deal with the homeless people and stuff. But the homeless aren't as bad as everybody thinks they are in the city of New York. I mean, I used to wake them up and you treat them with respect and dignity. They'll give you that back. It's whatever you do to a person is what you'll receive back. So I used to work with a few guys who weren't nice to homeless, and I used to tell them. I used to work with a conductor who used to do the same thing. He used to make their, and I said, "Don't do that. Don't do that because you're going to get hurt." And one day he did. Guy came at him, took a,
Mm.
stuck it right through his forearm, and it came out this way. And I was like,
That question, just so you're prepared tonight for your interview, that question came from Mike.
"Okay, great."
So you got to watch out for that one.
No, I'm going to be doing the interviewing on him.
Ron Brights wants to know, Big Bill, back when all these hangouts started, did you ever think that this would be as popular as it is today?
Ron's my go-to buddy down in Australia. Me and Ron really got to know each other a lot on the Google Hangouts. And has it gotten? Yeah, I guess it has. I see the proliferation of everybody doing something, now, and I'm glad for it. I was talking to John of keep pronouncing Skull Valley, Skull Kill,
Schuylkill River Valley.
Schuylkill River Valley. John, I was talking to John one day about that, and the question came up about competition, between the channels and everything. And I personally think that everybody's been respectful of everybody else. You notice no one ever tries to step on anybody's toes. It follows one after the other, and it's this, it's a gentleman thing going on where we're not airing the same time as somebody else is, or we're not planning the same thing. And I don't think there's competition, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I don't mean that nobody else is competitive with us, like we're the best of the best. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that there's room at the table for all of us.
Yeah.
Tonight I'm going to be interviewing cross anchors, railroad. Look at them. Look how they've branded themselves. Look how they've come out of the gate, and they're large scale. Most large scale guys, they don't get involved with us HO.
No, they don't. No, they don't.
Guys.
Yeah.
These guys come across the board and they really are into it. Look at George and Wally, the father and son, again, they come across. So yeah, there's a lot of room here for a lot of us, and it just gets better and better and better. And the more information we give out, the better it is for each and every one of us. We all have something to give.
I like to say it's not a zero-sum game. If you
Right,
take from one person, it's not like you're not taking from somebody
exactly.
in doing what you're doing. Yeah.
Exactly. And you're not stepping on anybody's toes, and that's the beauty of it.
So, one thing I would like to know is, how did you get the moniker Big Bill?
Well, if you met me in person, you would see that I am pretty tall and I am grande large. I'm fat. Okay. All right. I said it. I'm fat. All right.
So did somebody give you the name, or did it just kind of morph into it?
You know what? It just morphed into it. On the job, guys would call me Big Bill, and so it just stuck. And then when I was with Model Railroading Live Guide, the YouTube model builders, it just, they would say Big Bill. And then when they met me in person, they were like, "Oh, you really are Big Bill."
Yeah.
So,
trying to find.
You're doing great, Heath, so far. You really are.
Thank you so much.
Really
I wanted to find a comment that just popped up. And of course, now I'm scrolling back. The comments took off when we started talking both about the homeless people and, how they're treated. But then also talking about YouTube and not being a zero-sum game. Ron's Trains and Things, Big Bill, thanks for being such a positive voice of encouragement in the hobby and on YouTube.
Well, thank you, Ron. Thank you.
Yeah.
Ron, very big positive influence on that. Ron came on our channel, and he's another guy I got to go through the gatekeeper for every time. Can I speak to Ron? Oh, Ron, who is it? Big Bill. I'll call him later. I've been waiting 6 months, Ron. 6 months I've been waiting for your phone call.
I know Jimmy in his video today, he said that, Ron was very helpful when all this stuff was going on with his channel. So
yes,
I do think it's great that, the bigger channels are helping everybody else out. And, we've got a lot of big channels here in the chat and a lot of people just supporting each other. So
well, look how far you've come, Eve. No, serious. I'm serious. Look how far you've come. You started out. I got in touch with you, and then the next thing you were rolling along, and boom, you're out there. So it's work. It's a passion that you have for the railroad, for modeling, and you're making your contribution to it, and it's showing. Your hard work shows off, and nothing to like say, oh, I don't have a big layout, but you still contribute because you bring that perspective. You bring that small. You've inspired us to do that, small layout, big opportunity thing, because we were like talking to Tom Clemensky. I keep pronouncing his name wrong, and John Farrington.
Clemensky.
Yeah. Clemensky, yes.
Yeah. I don't. Yeah.
Right. So we would, that was it. So look how far you've come. It's
before we, well, one more quick sort of question. Is it the model railroading, or is it the community that kind of keeps this going for you? and I want to kind of get into, you do a weekly show, and that takes work. Like I've done a couple, streams now, and I know like it takes work. And even recently, you were just mentioning John and Tom and them. You did uh, I think it was Big Layout, Small Places, or something like. So you were doing 2 shows a week. You know, are you doing it for the community? Are you doing it for model railroading? Like, what drives you to keep model railroading live and all of your streams going?
It has everything to do with the with making the money and meeting women.
Yeah, this hobby brings the women in. They just come running.
Wait, oh, whoa, whoa! I gotta hold on. My wife just walked by the
Uh
door.
oh.
Now, I would say it's the all kidding aside, it's the hobby and the people. I really enjoy bringing. I shouldn't say I mean we. The guys that I work with are the best. This doesn't come together out of a vacuum. Robert Holman is and Tim Wayman are new to our crew, and these guys have such enthusiasm and such knowledge and such ideas. I mean, they're bringing things to the table that we can't keep up with. So I think it's a both the love for the community and the love for the hobby. Because when a guy like Tom Clemensky comes to me and says, hey, I'd like to do this, that you listen to a guy like that, because this is a guy who's, he knows his stuff, and he wants to bring something to the table. So he wants to share it. So, yeah, you want to kind of listen to those guys. I've come to realize that I'm a nobody trying to tell somebody about this hobby, and I'm not looking to gain fame or fortune or anything like that. And with the guys I work with, John Mitchell, Ralph Franzetti, Andy Crawford, Joe Desmond, I have to mention them, Tim Wayman, Robert Holman, and even Dan the Man, and that does our graphics for us. These guys are like the glue that hold us together because they throw the ideas in the pot and then we work them out and figure it out. I'd like to say that, oh, I'm the one that comes up with all these great, but I don't because, I'm not that smart.
Roy from N Scale Union Pacific Evanston Subdivision agrees with you. He says he's in it for the money and the women as well.
Yeah.
TSG Multimedia, though, John, he's a little bit on the other side. He says it's the people first. We happen to do cool stuff together, chasing trains or operating model trains, but without the people, I'd probably have a different hobby.
Yeah.
So, some people are in it for the money, and others,
Sure. But that's all right too. That's all right. Whatever floats the boat. One man's ceiling is another man's floor.
Absolutely. Jimmy says the amazing positivity of this community is amazing. I've personally experienced over the last 48 hours. You guys are amazing. So
Good community. We I say at the end of every broadcast that I have, if it wasn't for the community watching, I'd be speaking to dead air.
Yeah. Well, sometimes I do feel like I'm talking to myself, So I want to respect your time. I know you got stuff going on tonight. What's coming up for you? What's coming up for Model Railroading Live? Where can people find you?
Well, Model Railroading Live is located on the YouTube channel. You can Google us or kind of like type in Model Railroading Live, and you'll come up on our channel. And what's coming up for us is tonight, Who's Big Bill Talking To will be the Cross Anchor Railroad guys, Brian and Mike. And then next week on the 14th, I will be talking to Steve Atwell of Midwest Hobby Shops as they have moved into a new digs, bigger digs. And then after that, on the 21st, we'll be talking to the Gandy brothers, doing a new layout. They only have 69 subscribers, so we want to get them up, the Gandy brothers. It's Wayman and his best buddy, Vic, I think his name is. I'm not too sure. I hope I didn't mess that up. As far as what's going on, Robert Holman is in the process of putting together a 10-part series of half-hour shows of how-tos, basically. And it looks pretty interesting. And we're gearing up. Andy's gearing up with, as you know, with yourself and 4 other members to do dropping what works for you guys, points, tips, and stuff like that. And so we're working that, and we're trying to be all inclusive in working with other model railroads to join us in sharing some of their knowledge. And we're available if you have something you want to put together in short series. We've come to learn that doing short series is a lot better than doing longer series at a longer time, because we tend to lose. What you guys know out there, when you see a model do a YouTube video, the first thing you look at is timestamp. If it's over 30 minutes, it's going to be the beginning, the middle. It's going to be the beginning, the middle, and the end. That's it. And
Yep.
you're not gonna waste your time watching somebody cut 47 styrene. It's just not gonna happen. So my advice to everyone out there is 10, 15-minute videos. Short, simple.
So in 1 hour, everyone will head over and watch you interview the Cross Tankers Railroad team. I have one final question for you. As I'm doing that, if people want to post what's going on with their own channels in the chat, we talked a lot about building a community. This is a great time. Let us know what's coming up for you, especially if you have contests. Let us know what the contests are. And I'm just going to ask Big Bill. It's the one final question that I think everyone's been waiting for. Where's Scott?
Scott, where is Scott? That's a good question. Scott is back home at the Neely Historical Railroad. They have lifted the band out there, and he is now actively working on the Neely Historical Railroad. And I have to tell you, Don G, that was a fun thing to do with Don and Scott. And Scott was so gracious to allow us to use his photo. And he went all over the world. He went to New Zealand. He went to England, Canada. He went to the far reaches, as far as the east from the west. And Scott was really gracious. And they're a good crew. Don G and his father. Go check out Neely Historical Railroad.
Yeah.
Great bunch of guys.
Bill, thank you so much for your time. I know everyone appreciates it. It's been great flipping the tables, getting to know you a little bit better. Maybe there'll be a part 2. Maybe you'll come up with some other stuff that people don't know about you, and we'll go from there. So
absolutely.
Thank you so much. I'm going to say goodbye to you now, and then I'm going to read a couple of our community's chats, and we'll see you soon. We'll see you in about an hour.
Thank you. Take care. Be safe.
Thank you, everyone, so much. That was Big Bill from Model Railroading Live. Again, in 1 hour, head over to their channel and check out what they're up to. So Nick from PGH Train Fanatic says, Heath, you're still waiting for me to give away my Conrail Heritage set. He says he's going to be doing that as a 10,000 subscriber giveaway. I think that sounds pretty fantastic. Ray Boble, 376, and he launched vlog 37 today, so head over and check out that vlog. The Train Freak is at 298 subs. He's 2 subs away from 300. At 300, he's going to hold a contest. So he posted his contest video. Let's see if we can get him up to 300 and make that happen. Let me scroll down a little bit. Why Are You Naked says he's so far behind he can't catch up. Let's see what else we got here. Joey Busak says, I'm figuring out what I want to do next. Cross Tankers Railroads agrees that we need a part 2. Nathan DeLay, I'm at 889 subscribers, and I'm doing a contest that I'm scratch building, and he's going to give away a locomotive when he hits 1,000 subscribers. That was really awesome. DIY and Digital, 64 subscribers coming back. So if you haven't headed over there yet, definitely afterwards head over there. Just Nate's, HON3 East Broad Top Railroad, 277. Contest at 500. Possum Bayou, 123 subs. Rusty, we hope you're doing well down there. I saw there's some more weather coming your way, so take care with that. Roy Smith, N-Scale Union Pacific Evanston Subdivision says, yes, bring Bill back soon. So awesome. Thank you, everybody, so much. I really appreciate it. I'm just going to roll my end slide now. Thank you for coming. It's just been really fantastic. So Container Man 1435, I need new content to push me out of the damn 1430s. Well, Roy, you know how to fix that. You hit the post button. Union Pacific Snowy Valley Division. That's a new one. Union Pacific Snowy Valleys Division. Nice. 830 subs and 900 videos. Wow, there we go. Steve Childers says he'll give away a loco at 1,000 subs. He's currently at 4 subs. Thanks, everyone. Really appreciate it. Have a great night, and I'll see everybody soon.